It's Saturday morning in Iran, one day after millions of Iranian voters cast ballots in the most contested presidential election in the 26-year history of the Islamic Republic. Let's go live now to KTLA reporter Frank Buckley in Tehran for the latest on this election. Frank?
Good morning, Hal, from Tehran, where the voting is over, the polls have closed, and now the votes are being counted. The early suggestion here, Hal, is that a runoff appears likely. We may know the outcome of this election by the end of today, the end of Saturday here in Tehran, and we should also know a sense of the outcome. We'll find out if voters here defied the calls for a boycott of this election by exiles, by dissidents, and by some people in the reform community here, people who wanted to say this is not a legitimate election.
At a mosque in Tehran, Iranians voted for their next president. But here, the so-called supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, is the one with the ultimate authority, and some told us no matter who they were voting for in the presidential race, their devotion to the unelected Ayatollah was unmatched.
With all of my life, if he asked me to cut off my head, I would do that for him.
But others in Iran are ready for change. They've been pushing for reforms, more freedom. University students have been pushing the hardest. That a swipe at President Bush, who criticized Iran's election. Are you one of the students who believes in reforming Iran?
Yes, I am a student that believes reform in Iran, but I think that our people can reform in Iran. We don't need American to reform in Iran.
Some pro-democracy reformers told us his criticisms actually have the unintended consequence of hurting them because it gives hardliners a chance to crack down.
When President Bush actually says something about Iran, we who are seeking democracy inside the country are actually under pressure. Because they say you are an enemy, you are just doing what Americans are saying.
The votes of many pro-reform Iranians are going to this man, Mustafa Moeen, one of the leading candidates to be the country's next president. He sat down with us for an interview on Election Day. Will relations between the United States and Iran improve if you are elected president?
We intend to address all the challenges in our foreign policy, which is topped by the issue of relations with the United States. But this requires the will of both sides, and it requires an atmosphere of trust and honesty.
Iran's developing nuclear technology is the biggest worry in Washington. Moeen pledged if he is elected, that technology will not be used to create nuclear weapons.
I believe that our national might does not depend on possessing nuclear weapons. This sort of talk is for half a century ago. A country's might in today's world depends on its knowledge and human resources, which we have, and we don't need nuclear weapons. Hence, it seems that it's best that more trust is put in Iran.
Voters told us that Americans had nothing to fear from Iranians. What do you want Americans to know about the Iranian people?
I want them to know we have freedom, that we want peace, and we do not believe in war. We are anti-war.
You hear that a lot from Iranians who say they have no quarrel with Americans themselves, they want only peace. But you also hear some harsh rhetoric too, like the kind we heard at this prayer service in Tehran. Before the praying began, this man denounced the United States. Their chant, "Death to America." Observers claim they don't mean it literally, they mean death to America's policies. But you see the same sentiments expressed elsewhere around Tehran, most notably here at the old American Embassy, where Americans were taken hostage more than 25 years ago, where the relationship between Iran and America was so terribly damaged, a relationship that Iran's next president may try to repair. And you heard from Mr. Moeen on how he hopes to engage the West. Other leading candidates, among them Hashemi Rafsanjani, the former president of Iran, also expected to make similar statements in the days ahead. For now, I'm Frank Buckley, live in Tehran, KTLA News. Hal, back to you.
Now, reporter Frank Buckley and producer Shauna Khorrami will have further reports from inside Iran on Prime News this weekend and next week, and on the morning news beginning at 5 a.m. on Monday. Lou?